Welcome, nerds, once again to the news. The news just keeps on newsing. This is another big episode, at least another big music section. We'll get to all of that. Speaking of the music section, we have another week, means another silly music controversy. This time it is Elon Musk versus Rage Against the Machine. We'll get to that. We have the PS6 is already in early development over in the gaming section. Comics sees Batman get his very own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The legit Batman, not an actor. It is actually Batman Bruce Wayne. Venom 3 trailer makes me eat just a little bit of crow almost immediately after the last episode went up. Netflix is trying to steal YouTube's lunch. Plus, we get to kill a pesky little rumor over in the rumor mill. All of that and quite a bit more, so let's get to it. So this week in music, the new music section is legitimately, I think, the biggest new music section we've had in a long time. It's insane. Plus we have the Jane's Addiction situation just kind of blew up in everybody's face. We're going to talk about that and the repercussions. And then the big one is Elon versus Rage Against the Machine. They're going off on Twitter, X, whatever. We're going to talk about all that and quite a bit more. So let's do the thing. We have no follow-ups or corrections in the music section this week, though I do hope that that changes in the very near future. We have a bunch of new music to get to, though, so let's talk about the new music section. Let's kick things off. A lot of this stuff dropped as I was uploading last week's episode. A couple of these videos dropped, and that's going to be a running theme throughout this episode. So yeah, the news. Usually when we get closer to the end of the year, things start to taper off. I thought we were already to that point a couple of weeks ago because we had a slow news week. I don't think we're there just yet, but we will get there. 90% of the time it happens that way, so we will get there, I'm sure. But either way, let's get into the new music. So, starting things off, we have As I Lay Dying dropping a new track called We Are the Dead. This is notable because it's featuring Alex Terrible and Tom Barber. Barber, formerly of Lorna Shore, now in Chelsea Grin, and Alex Terrible, obviously being Alex Terrible. So, this is kind of what I wanted out of the new As I Lay Dying. I don't know if it's necessarily because they had the guest spots, because they had those extra vocalists that they kind of stepped it up a little bit, but man, they stepped it up a little bit. This is, either way, whatever the reason for them stepping it up, I really feel like this momentum is good, and if you continue to make music like this, then maybe you'll get certain music outlets to start covering you again, because there's no way they can ignore something that is this level of quality. So keep it up, gentlemen. I absolutely love this new track. If you haven't listened to it, We Are the Dead is 100% a recommend. Go check it out from As I Lay Dying. Next on the list, we have Whitechapel with their new track, A Visceral Wretch. I once heard someone at a show, just talking between bands, say that they didn't really like the new Whitechapel because the new Whitechapel wasn't quite as heavy as old Whitechapel. Well, for whoever that person was, that random dude at a concert, I think this song is going to put him in his place because this is absolutely one of the heaviest tracks I've ever heard come out of this band. I can't even get into how invigorating it was to listen to. Legitimately was mesmerized. I oftentimes when I'm doing research for episodes, I'm listening to the new music while I'm reading articles and taking my notes on other things. This was a song that legitimately made me stop and put it up on the big screen because wow, this was fantastic. The name of the song again, Visceral Wretch. This is probably some of the best Whitechapel that's ever been. If you are into deathcore at all, then you absolutely need to check out this track. If you don't know where to start and you're intrigued by this idea of this subgenre of the metals called deathcore, then I would say this is a fantastic place to start. Check out the new Whitechapel. It's phenomenal. Now that I'm done singing the praises of bands that we kind of already knew that I was into, at least a little bit, let's kind of flip that on its head for just a moment. We're talking about the new Mastadon and Lamb of God track. These two bands joined up to create this song called Floods of Triton. And when you think of Mastadon and Lamb of God, you think of standard bearers for modern heavy metal, modern American heavy metal, no less. And this song, while still good, don't get me wrong, it is definitely subpar music from either of these bands is still better than 80% of the rest of the music world. So like when I say this is a little disappointing, that's not to say it's bad. It's just to say that those two bands have a pretty high standard of music, and this doesn't meet that pretty high standard. If you say, let's say Blood Mountain or Crack the Sky would be an A+ for Mastodon, and then you're looking at Ashes of the Wake and As the Palaces Burn, if that's an A+ from Lamb of God, then this song is barely a C for these two bands. Like, it's still passable, and it's still something that when I hear it on the radio or if the video plays because the random algorithm likes to do that to me, then I'm not going to turn it off. But I don't know that I'm going to actively seek out to listen to it multiple times just because it was relatively underwhelming. So sure, it's a recommend because Lamb of God and Mastodon basically can never not be. I just feel like this one doesn't meet the expectations when you go into it thinking Lamb of God and Mastodon together? Yeah, go in there at your own risk. So from there, we've got another new track from Dead Icarus. This is the first of 2 times we're going to be talking about Dead Icarus this week. I'm super stoked for the next piece. Either way, the new track here is Bearing Burdens and Saving Skin. I don't know how to explain, I'm back on that, super excited about this new music stuff. I don't know how to explain the fact that every time Dead Icarus drops a new track, it's better than the previous track. And every time I want to say, this is what Atreyu should be, when this is kind of what Atreyu is, because Alex was a good portion, apparently, of the songwriting team for Atreyu, and that is very clearly showing in this Dead Icarus material. So yes, this is almost deathcore. Like, this is somewhere in that weird middle ground between metalcore and deathcore, because you still have the soaring metalcore style chorus, but the verses and the intro into this song, it just comes out just breaking heads. Like, it is intense, and this is Alex doing just a different style of vocal for these verses, and I'm just gonna keep going on if we don't move. So let's continue, shall we? Absolutely recommend Dead Icarus. Recommend. Go listen to it now. I don't even care if you finish the video. If you're going to listen to Dead Icarus, that is absolutely a thing to do. Next up, we have A Killer's Confession. So this is a band. The name of the track that we're going to talk about is Voices, but this is a band that a lot of people have been telling me that I should be listening to because I'm a big Mushroomhead fan. The reason is because Waylon from Mushroomhead, this is his current project. It's called, again, A Killer's Confession. The name of the track is Voices, and I do really appreciate Waylon's vocals. The Save Your Sorrow is legitimately in my top 3 Mushroomhead records. Like, that is a really, really good record and really underrated in the world of Mushroomhead. But I don't hear a lot of Mushroomhead in this Waylon material, in this Killer's Confession material, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, I don't see why, if I'm a big fan of Mushroomhead, that people were pushing me into this, aside from the fact that they're the same genre. This is definitely nu metal. This is definitely Waylon showing his nu metal roots. Also featuring vocals from, see if I can, Aaron Nordstrom. I don't know who else he sings for, if anyone, but I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to tell me. Yeah, just this, it's still a really solid track, especially if you're a big nu metal head, because nu metal has a very distinctive quality to it, and a lot of traditional metal heads and new wave metal heads don't really get into the nu metal so much. So this is absolutely knows who its target audience is and is doing the thing. This is something that I will probably actively seek out to listen to again. It's still a middle recommend, just because Waylon has done better music than this. Specifically, I'm thinking of the Save Your Sorrow record, but we know that Waylon has done better music than this, so I know he's capable of more. This is still pretty damn good, though. From there, let's go over next to a band that speaking of that random YouTube algorithm that just suggests me crazy things, we have a band called Silly Goose. The name of the song is Bad Behavior. So when I saw this one pushed at me, I had to go see what a band called Silly Goose was all about. Judging by the name of the band and judging by the thumbnail and then also judging by the name of the track, again, Bad Behavior, it seemed like I was getting myself into some sort of new iteration of punk rock. And then the intro into the video before the actual song starts kind of reinforced that expectation. And then the song hits, and that was not the music we got. It's not bad. I'm absolutely not saying, I'm not throwing shade at this band at all. Just the expectation was built up in one direction, and it didn't really feel like that was the direction it went. This is probably more in line with modern nu metal. This is definitely hip-hoppy vocals, very rhythmic-based guitar and instrumental, and very good musicianship. Like, some of the better nu metal stuff that I've heard for some time. I mean, the guitar work is definitely not Wes Borland levels of fantastic, nor is it Monkey and Head from Korn. It's not that kind of, but it's a different, more metallic-leaning sound on the instrumental, which I find really interesting, and I'm super stoked to see that younger generations are still getting into the nu metal stuff. So this is a recommend, if for no other reason than just to see what modern nu metal should sound like. I know we've talked about before what modern nu metal does sound like, and that was disappointing. This one, not really disappointing. So go check it out. Next, we have Neon Nightmare. So we talked about this band once before. This is one of the new kind of dark goth, I don't know how you're gonna, the typo negative clone bands, I guess, because there have been a number of these at this point. Neon Nightmare is the most recent version of this. I would say the most successful version of this would be Unto Others. Neon Nightmare doing a lot more on the typo negative side of the goth sound, whereas Unto Others is kind of finding their own voice now, which is pretty damn awesome. But Neon Nightmare, even though it sounds like the songs that Typo Negative never wrote, it's still really good. Like the bass line in the beginning of this song that really kind of gets you into the groove of this song is so infectious, and that's a weird thing to say about a goth track. Like, legitimately just like was, all right, let's see where this is going, because I am digging. And it did not disappoint. Got a little bit more into the metallic side of things. Not so much as the new Unto Others, and there's going to be a lot of comparisons to Unto Others. There is no way to get around that, just like the comparisons to Typo Negative. Just no way to get around that, because the sounds are so similar, and Unto Others, like I said, is a much more successful band that did this earlier than Neon Nightmare, but definitely not earlier than Typo. But either way, Neon Nightmare, She's Drowning is the name of the track, and I'm sure I buried that at least, but it's worth a listen. I'm super stoked for the new record. I think the new record has a title, but I didn't put in the notes because, especially for this section, I take amazing notes. But the new record does have a title, and I don't think there is a release date for it yet, but if there is, we will do a follow-up next week. Go check out She's Drowning. It's fantastic. Let's move on. From there, we have, this is another band we're revisiting, Nightland. We talked about them previously. They are the weird kind of high lung clone that did the Slipknot cover a few weeks back. This is an original track, but this, so again, expectations are set to go one way, and then they subvert the expectation in a very interesting way for this one. The name of this track is The Lame Rogue. So I was definitely expecting storytelling, but this is like a part of a larger story that apparently the record tells, and it is legitimately like sitting by the fireside telling stories and then chanting, and which again was kind of what you expect out of what we previously were exposed to from this band. But this is this still was unexpected at the same time. Like, you're expecting there to be chanting, but you're expecting it to be that the Euro-Germanic kind of ancient world kind of chanting, like Heilung, kind of like we got in that Slipknot cover. And this was almost more Native American tribal chanting, but it's still like the story still sounded like a ancient European style story, so it was really, really difficult to navigate through. It wasn't necessarily unpleasant to navigate through, but I think if you're not in it for the whole ride, presumably for the whole record, it's easy to get lost and it's easy to lose interest in this. So this is a mild recommend, but that's not necessarily a fault of the band. It's more a fault of the format through which they released the track. I feel like if I were listening to the whole record, it would be a very different experience. So mild recommend, but still a recommend. And then let's shift gears completely and get into an entirely different genre that we talk about from time to time, and that is the raps. So Eminem is an artist that we've covered here on the channel a number of times. LL Cool J, on the other hand, is not. At least not in his artist music side. We may or may not have referenced him in some movie stuff previously, maybe even some TV stuff, but never music. So LL Cool J is putting out new music, and this was a lot of fun as well. Like, I don't know, it's hard for me to spotlight music on the show that I didn't enjoy. So that's why oftentimes you see I'm just really hype about all of the music that we talk about, is because I'm choosing the tracks from the week that were super fun to listen to, that were definitely moving forward the conversation. From time to time, we will come across something that I will have negative things to say about, or I will say steer clear of entirely, but that also moves the conversation forward. There's not going to be a whole lot of middle ground when it comes to this stuff. So I know there's going to be somebody eventually who's like, he just loves everything because he doesn't know what good music is. No, I like all genres, and if there's a lot of good music in all genres. So anyway, LL Cool J, Eminem did a track together. The name of this song is Murdergram Dieu. This is legitimately, it's not, I wouldn't say it's the best track that I've heard either of these artists on by far, but there is definitely a sense of Eminem's sense of humor. There's definitely a sense of LL MC skills. Like, you definitely get a lot of the things that make them great. Even if this isn't the greatest example of those things, it's still really damn good. And again, something that is middling from these guys is still going to put them above the rest of the pack. So by all means, go listen to this Murdergram Part Deux, because it's absolutely a jam, and I can't say anything really bad about it. So let's continue moving through this. We do have a couple more left. First up, we have Bleeding Through. Bleeding Through just dropped a new track, Dead But So Alive. Brandon Chipetti crawled so that Alex Terrible could run, and now Alex Terrible seems to be influencing Brandon Chipetti back into it. This is such an interesting cycle of things. So I say it that way. Alex Terrible has nothing to do with this track, but Brandon Chipetti, very well known at this point, that he's like a health guru guy. He's a trainer at a gym. Like, that's what he does when he's not on tour or writing music. That's his other job, and it has been for a while, and he's been ripped for a long damn time, and he's made extreme music for a long damn time, long before Alex Terrible was even out of whatever grade school you go through in Russia when you're, a small child. So yeah, Chipetti is kind of the prototype for Alex Terrible in a lot of ways. And then we get this new movement of deathcore, where metalcore, which is kind of where Brandon comes from. Brandon, obviously the lead singer for Bleeding Through. So when we get this more extreme style of things, metalcore kind of evolves. Brandon comes from this more hardcore side of the metalcore stuff, but still very much metalcore. Go listen to the album The Truth to see what I'm talking about, because that is prime metalcore, and also like very much an essence of where they're from out east. So then we get this deathcore. The heavy music scene evolves to become even more extreme and brutal, and deathcore becomes a thing. And then Bleeding Through comes out of their hiatus, and they've been doing really a lot more extreme music, to the point where in this video, the guitar player is wearing a leather gauntlet with like 3-inch spikes all over it, which I thought was pretty badass, because that's not really something you see in the metalcore scene. Definitely the deathcore scene, you would probably see something like that. And the death metal scene, absolutely, because that's kind of the imagery that is perpetuated in that scene. So it's really cool to see just this really awesome meshing of cultures and genres, and again, Shapetti doing this really badass deathcore like style verse, much like the Dead Icarus track that we just talked about. Deathcore style verse with an obviously metalcore soaring chorus that just really no one can do quite as well as Bleeding Through these days, with the crazy extremes, where you get somebody like Killswitch who does a very similar thing where the verses are really brutal and then the choruses are big and soaring, and that's kind of the standard. But that is definitely a different kind of brutality. That's more of a technical brutality, whereas the deathcore stuff, and this track specifically, again, the track from Bleeding Through is called Dead But So Alive. This track specifically is more of like just a sledgehammer over the head until you get to that soaring chorus. So yeah, really, really good stuff. Been a big fan of Bleeding Through for some time. Super excited to see them really hitting this new stride in this new heavy scene. So also of note for this track, really cool to see, because I haven't really listened thoroughly to the last two records they put out, but so it's not to say that this hasn't happened previously, but it's really cool on this track to see Marta's vocals be spotlighted a little bit more than they were back in the day. So yeah, awesome track. Go check out Bleeding Through, Dead But So Alive. Next up, we got two more. Next up, we got Poppy, which was weird. Why the hell is Poppy on this list? We've talked about her previously. I'm pretty sure I did a proper reaction video to one of her tracks a couple years ago. We talked about when she did that collaboration with Knocked Loose, which was a freaking fantastic track. She's done a couple other collaborations since then with other heavy bands, and so it seems like that stuff is really, where before it seemed like she was kind of cosplaying as a metalhead because the music didn't exactly jibe with the image that she was trying to put forward. But this track definitely puts that to bed, because these verses, this is another ridiculous example of this new dynamic that we're seeing of these really extreme verses and then these big giant choruses. And it's even more extreme when you have a voice like Poppy, because she is a pop singer. That is how she started her music career. So to hear her do this like crazy extreme vocal for these verses and then get into this chorus and be like this bubblegum pop chorus, like I heard, or one of the headlines that was talking about this track said something about genre defying. I wouldn't say it's defying anything. This is definitely a metalcore track. There's no two ways about that. But this is just a really interesting example of the diversity of that genre of music. So yeah, Poppy track is a recommend, which still sounds weird coming out of my mouth, but go check it out. The name of the track, just in case I didn't say it, is They're All Around You. And I don't believe I said it because that doesn't sound familiar, but They're All Around You is a recommend. Go check it out. All right, and then our final one. We're going out on a bummer note on this guy, because bummer on a number of reasons, not the least of which being like so much of this new music section has been really great music. But August Burns Red put out a new track. The name of their new track is Exhumed, and this one I think falls short. Again, August Burns Red is one of those bands that very much has a high expectation level. If you are a fan of August Burns Red, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is some of the best, not even just a standard bearer. They do their own style of metalcore. This is a band that saw what the other metalcore bands are doing and going, that's really cool, but we're gonna do this thing that's gonna set us apart instead of being part of the pack. Even though we're technically the same subgenre, like you can't really compare a lot of what August Burns Red does to the other metalcore acts that are out there, especially the legacy metalcore acts like they are. So to hear them do something like this that is borderline octane core really feels disheartening. Like, this is still good. Like, the production on their stuff has not ever really wavered. I would say Satellite was the first time I really noticed something that really was like, oh, these guys are really coming into it, and then everything since then has been just stellar production-wise. So the production is still really good on this. Did get a little muddy in some of the spots, but I'm not going to be too nitpicky about it because really the performances is what we're looking at here, and this does not seem up to the level that they have set. This is not the standard that they have set for themselves. So, still better than most? Sure. Is it as good as the rest of their catalog? No, not really. This is very much a meh kind of track from August Burns Red. So, sad to say, but this is, again, a very mild recommend. Yes, it's August Burns Red, so you should be versed in it, at least to some degree, but this is the negative side of why you should be versed in a thing, because we experience things for two reasons, right? Because you need to know what the highs are and you need to know what the lows are. This is the lows for August Burns Red. So that is the end of the new music section. Oh, woo-hoo-hoo. I told you it was big. Let's now move over to tours and festivals. This is just a giant freaking episode, guys. So first things first, we have touring news from Jane's Addiction, who were on tour but have canceled the rest of their tour. The reason being, wow, if you don't know, if you have for some reason have not heard, Perry Farrell, the vocalist for Jane's Addiction, kinda lost his mind on stage and then decided to, for whatever reason, take it out on Dave Navarro. Which, I mean, maybe there was a reason why they kind of broke up back in the day, and then Dave was in and out of the band for a while. Or I'm sorry, Dave was in and out of the band, and then they called hiatus, and they haven't really done anything until a couple years ago, right? So maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's some sort of behind the scenes thing for that, just in general. And so some of that kind of brushed up against Perry's current manic state, because that's obvious, that's very painfully obviously what happened on stage. If you watch the video, and hopefully I can get my hands on it and we can put it up on the screen right now, but if you watch the video, it doesn't seem like there's any instigating moment. Just all of the sudden, Perry is up in Dave's face and then pushes him, and then you see the stage hand come on and try and calm him down, and then you see a number of stage hands come on and try and calm him down, and then they pull him off stage, and it's really sad. Perry, I feel like, has not really been super well mentally for some time, but I think it just finally came to a head. So the band issued a statement almost immediately afterwards. They had to cancel. So the timeline of events was the issue happened on stage. Obviously, the rest of that show was canceled. Then the next night's show got canceled. And then the band put out a statement just the other day saying that now the entire rest of the tour is going to be canceled because they worry for the health of Perry, but also for their own safety on stage, because if that can just happen at the drop of a hat, then like, how are we supposed to play with this? How are we supposed to work around somebody that is very legitimately so freaking hostile? So then, I believe it was the next day, might have been 2 days later, but I'm pretty sure it was the next day, you had Perry's wife, which honestly was surprised that Perry was married to a woman. I really thought he was gay. No judgment, I just thought that was Perry. Anyway, so Perry's wife put out a statement talking about how there were sound issues and Perry has really bad tinnitus, so it was affecting him psychologically, and then said something about the bass player taking jabs. I don't remember seeing the bass player in the video, so I don't know how that happened. But she said, Dave did not deserve to be treated like that, which is very clearly obvious in the video. And then Perry released his statement basically saying the same thing. He apologized to his bandmates first and foremost. He apologized to his fans, friends, and family for the way he acted on stage and for the necessitating of the cancellation of the tour. So really, really unfortunate situation in the Jane's Addiction band camp at this point. The camp at this point, because like you hate to see that kind of stuff happen, but I mean, every now and then you got to take some mental health time, right? Childish Gambino's doing it. It's not the first time a celebrity would have to do such things. it's just super duper unfortunate that they were in the middle of a tour when this had to happen. So yeah, that is kind of where that is. If there are any reschedules, which doesn't seem likely, if something happens with this more, we will be following up. But until then, let's move on. Let's get into some actual touring news. First up is Deftones are going out with the Mars Volta, and I saw Fleshwater, but it could be Freshwater. I think it was Fleshwater. I don't know. I've never heard of this band either way. The tour starts February 25th in Portland, Oregon, runs through April 8th in Boston, Massachusetts. Deftones and Mars Volta on the same bill, like that is a... every venue they play at is going to reek of weed, but also the music that is going to be happening on stage is going to be quite the experience. So I don't know if they're not coming to my neck of the woods, so I will not be able to decide if I want to go, because I'm still definitely on the fence if that would be a thing. That, I mean, like, that's going to be a spectacle. Those two bands together is going to be quite an interesting show. So yeah, super stoked for anyone who does get to see that, because yeah, it's really cool. Anyway, I'm babbling. Let's move on. Next up, we have Bullet for My Valentine and Trivium. The European tour is now coming to North America, finally. This is the Poisoned Ascendancy tour, the North American leg. They've been on this tour for something like 6 to 8 months at this point, but it's been over in Europe. So now they're coming to North America. The North American dates start March 30th of 2025 in Vancouver, British Columbia, and run through May 18th in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the tour, because the Poisoned Ascendancy tour. This is the tour where the Poison record from Bullet for My Valentine and the Ascendancy record from Trivium have turned 20 years old, so this is their celebration. They're longtime friends. Support on this tour comes from two fantastic bands and then a newish band that's pretty good. Fantastic band number 1 is August Burns Red. Fantastic band number 2 is Silosis, and then Bleed From Within is going to be doing some of those dates as well. Silosis will be on the first part of the tour, and then Bleed From Within will be on the second part of the tour, and August Burns Red is going to be doing the entire tour as support for these bands. So that's going to be a hell of a bill too. Not so big on Bullet for My Valentine. I'm all right on Trivium, but every chance I get, I want to go see August Burns Red, because they put on such a show. Like, that's going to be a weird situation for people who maybe aren't really into, or just finding these bands. It's the first time they've seen them live, and August Burns Red comes on and melts their face, and then Trivium comes on and then kind of melts their socks, and then Bullet for My Valentine comes on and they're like, yeah, we're pretty heavy too. So anyway, let's move on. Tickets, as per usual, you can find links down in the description. If you want tickets to any of these shows, there are links that will get you to the ticket sales websites. The next one, the final one for this episode, is Primus. This is an interesting one. The Sessanta version 2.0. Sessanta, if you remember, the original Sessanta tour, I guess, it was just a couple of dates, was the 60th birthday party for Maynard James Keenan. The actual 60th birthday was at Red Rocks in Denver, I believe, and was apparently quite the show. I know a couple of people that were there. This is a proper tour with that same lineup. So it's going to be Primus, Perfect Circle, and Puscifer. Kind of still an extended birthday party for Maynard James Keenan, even though Tool isn't part of this. So the dates for this tour start April 24th in Palm Springs, California, run through June 7th in Auburn, Washington. So yeah, go check that one out, because again, just the 3 bands that deserve to be around each other, that is going to make for a crazy night. All right, so that's tours and festivals. Let's get into the regular ass news. We do have a couple of pieces here for that as well. First up, just a real quick piece. Ice 9 Kills have announced officially that they are going to be doing the official opening song for the 3rd Terrifier movie. Name of the song is called A Work of Art. The movie will be in theaters October 11th. So if you're a big slasher fan, then this is going to be one of the craziest releases movie-wise of the year. And you get to hear a new Ice 9 Kills record, or song. There's going to be a video for this that they're also going to shoot, probably involving Art the Clown, because it's the opening song for the movie, so why wouldn't he be in the music video? I'm kind of interested to see how that goes. But yeah, real quick piece, Nice 9 Kills doing a track for Terrifier 3. Next up is the Dead Icarus piece that we talked about previously. They have finally announced the record. The full-length EP is going to be called Zealot. It is going to be out October 31st via MNRK Heavy Records. So super stoked for that. What a great day to release music on Halloween Day, right? That's, yeah, again, another real quick little piece. Let's move on. This is the one that we're going to spend just a little bit of time on, and this is Elon Musk versus Rage Against the Machine. So, kind of apropos of nothing. Well, I don't know, that's maybe not appropriate. In response to a lot of the media coverage for the things that are going on in the proper news media right now, i.e. a second assassination attempt on our former president. We also have just the crazy the division between the sides and the blatant lies that are being purported by big media outlets in favor of one certain party, and really like obviously false things are being claimed, provably false, like easily provably false things are being claimed by the news media to support, again, one side of this political debate. So in response to that, I'm imagining, because I think I remember seeing this when he initially tweeted it or posted it, whatever, and I'm pretty sure it was in response to something like that, but I can't say that for certain because I didn't verify for this. I just vaguely remember the tweet happening. So Elon says, "Why are so many people raging for the machine?" with a cry laughing emoji. Just because that seems to be the trend anymore, especially coming from COVID. You had people like Tom Morello saying, listen to the government, do what the government wants you to do. This is a good thing. The government only has your best interests in mind. This is the message we were getting from the guitar player, the militant socialist guitar player from the band that is literally called Rage Against the this is the band who is supposed to be so anti-government. That is why you named yourself the thing that says I am anti-government, right? So, in response to this, there's no rebuttal, there's no callback. It's kind of just petty name calling that comes from Tom Morello. Interesting. Petty, not exactly name calling. He doesn't call him a name per se, but Tom Morello's response tweet was funny, because Elon was the kid on the cover of Evil Empire, and then he posted the cover of Evil Empire, and sure, if you want to say that looks kind of like Elon, I can see it a little bit, I guess. But that's your response. You don't have anything to say about the fact that your music is being appropriated by the machine, the literal machine. Your music is being appropriated by the machine that you're supposed to be raging against, and your response is that to somebody who's trying to also make the comment that we're not supposed to trust the machine. Are we in a different universe? Did I step through the multiverse and I'm in a different timeline now? What the hell is going on? Yeah, so it's just an interesting situation. I don't understand. I don't get a lot of people. This is why I am a one-man show, because I work by myself. So that is the situation between Elon and Rage Against the Machine. Tom Morello is just a self-centered prick. Let's just leave it at that. That is what we have for regular news, kind of. We do have a couple of honorable mentions, because there's two things I'm sure that if you are at least kind of tuned into the music scene, then you probably heard. There's one really big one that we didn't talk about, and that is Dave Grohl. The whole Dave Grohl situation. Rock stars gonna be rock stars, and yeah, I never expected Dave Grohl to be a stand-up citizen. I kind of assumed most rock stars are despicable people behind the scenes, and Dave Grohl kind of proved that this weekend, or over the course of the last week, because he cheated on his amazingly beautiful wife with somebody disgusting and knocked her up, and that is that. And then we also have honorable mention for the thing that we've kind of been keeping tabs on for some time, and that is The Sword, set to release that reunion show that they're going to do on November 3rd at Levitation, in Levitation, Texas, I believe is the name of the town they're going to be, the city, whatever. It's going to be called Live from Levitation Live, and super excited about that, but it was just kind of a real quick, the blink and you missed it kind of news piece. So that is the regular S news section. Let's get into our music suggestion for the week, and our music suggestion is Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness by the Smashing Pumpkins. We are into the fall times. This is spooky season, as it were, and this is an unexpected record to be recommending considering that, but then you listen to the record and you go, wow, this really does fit this time of year. This is a fall record. I know each disc, one disc is supposed to be daytime and one disc is supposed to be nighttime, but like, this is a fall record. Billy Corgan's The Wall is what he was trying to do, and I think to a certain degree he was successful, as much as I don't want to admit that. Like, he kind of was. There's a lot of phenomenal music on this double album that charted in spite of being a double album, released at #1 on Billboard when it was released. Standout tracks on this record, you've got Tonight, 1979, Zero, one of the most iconic riffs that ever came out of the 90s, let alone out of this band, but also An Ode to No One is a banger that I've really gotten into a lot more in recent years. So that is your suggestion this week for music. Go listen to Smashing Pumpkins' Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Gaming news this week sees the DLC for Starfield come out, or is about to launch, and it's both smaller and also more detailed than anticipated. We're going to get to that. Plus, Tony Hawk is teasing some new gaming stuff that could be pretty amazing, not gonna lie. And then the PS6 is in fact in early development, and it's showing good signs for the future. Let's get into all of that in a bit more. All right, follow-ups and corrections for gaming and tech. We have a couple. First up, we have Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection. For those of us who are waiting for the physical release, which is due out November 22nd in North America, you will be pleased to know that it is going to be a proper physical release. It is not going to be a code in a box. At least not in North America. The European release apparently is going to be a code in a box for some reason. At least the first shipment of boxes will just be effectively an empty box with a code in it, which is highly unfortunate. I really hate that aspect of modern gaming, but the North American release is going to have an actual game inside of it. There was something else here. No, that's it. That's everything. It's going to, there will be a cartridge if you are purchasing it for the Switch in North America. So there's that. Speaking of the Nintendo Switch, we now have word that the holiday bundles are being announced, and of course, for the, 12th year in a row, 20th year in a row, who knows? The Twitch holiday bundle is going to be featuring Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Of course. Why? What else? What other game has released since the launch of this console that would warrant a special edition of the... Oh, 2 versions of Zelda, maybe? Or, I don't know, probably half a dozen other games in the last 2 years at least? Like, whatever. I still don't have Mario Kart 8 and I really need to get it, but like... I have a Switch, so I don't need a whole console. It's just, whatever. This is a silly decision. We're going to move on because I can't, I'm just going to keep hamming up on it. Next, the follow-ups, we have another round of closings from GameStop. We do know that last year, their year-over-year, or last year to this year, quarter one of 2023 to quarter one of 2024, saw a 30% decrease in sales for the company of GameStop. So, as a response to that, they made the announcement they're going to be shuttering a good chunk of their stores. They did not say exactly how many stores they were going to be closing the doors on. Seems like a weird contrasting business model from the last time we talked about GameStop, because that was them pivoting some of their stores to be retro stores where they're going to be selling old consoles and previous generation games. So very interesting, the status of GameStop. I really feel like we're seeing we're about to get to the final death throes of this company, and it's a sign of the times, and it really breaks your heart to see, but that just kind of is what it is. That's what we have for follow-ups and corrections. Let's jump into trailers. The first trailer has actually to do with an announcement from Steam. Steam has changed the way family plans work. So previously, if you were on a family plan and the owner of the plan was on playing a game, then anyone else who was also registered to that plan would not be able to play anything because the account was occupied, as it were. Well, now with their new family plans, you will be able to play any other game as long as everybody is registered to the family, aside from what the other person is playing. So it could be any one of, they do family plans for up to 6 people, because obviously it's not just going to be families that take advantage of this, it is going to be friend groups, I'm sure. So they kind of anticipated that and said, okay, well, you can all be part of the same Steam plan and you can all play different games at the same time, up to 6 of you. But you cannot have multiple people on the same game unless different instances of that game exist in the family library. So also, again, speaking of people who are not maybe blood relatives participating in these family plans, you will be able to leave a family plan and join another one. But once you have joined a new family plan, you are stuck as part of that family for a year. You will not be able to leave that family until you have been a part of it for a year, and then you can leave and join your other friends for whatever circle, whatever. So they kind of have a lot of this figured out, and it sounds like finally we're getting closer to the way it was back when the physical media was the dominant form of gaming media, where you could just, if you had a copy of this game and it was your brother's, you could still put it into your Xbox and play it because there was no DRM stopping you from doing that. So yeah, really awesome. Definitely moving in the right direction for Steam. I just really am super excited to see what more they have going forward. From there, let's talk now about the new trailer and the expansion for Starfield Shattered Space. So this technically isn't a trailer. This is more a breakdown of the DLC, but it's this still video that was released by Bethesda, so kind of qualifies, and you see some new gameplay. But really, the big thing to take away from this is this DLC, the Shattered Space DLC, isn't at least what I was expecting out of it, because I was expecting it to somehow expand the galaxy that you're in, that's part of the game, and also potentially a gameplay change with the whole landing on planets and mining for resources and stuff when you get to those planets, because that's a big sticking point for a lot of people, is the way that mechanic works is fairly broken and is not the way it was sold to us when this game was originally being marketed. That's not what they're fixing. This DLC is more, it's a specific planet, so the entire story for this DLC happens on one planet, but it also makes a lot of the more granular things that you can change, that you can edit, that you can customize. It gives you a lot more capabilities when it comes to that kind of stuff. So that's what I mean by it's at once smaller than anticipated, but also a little bit more detailed, because the details are coming out, but only once you're already on the planet. So seems like almost a course correction, but not nearly enough. Let's continue on, though. That's all we have for trailers. Let's get into some regular ass news. Ubisoft's The Crew 2. Almost in response to the current Stop Killing Games petition in the EU that's going before EU Parliament, they announced for the Crew, not only Crew, but Crew Motorfest are going to be having offline play modes. So once the servers are done, once Ubisoft no longer is supporting these games, you will still be able to play them offline, because that is the way gaming should be, and hopefully more producers will take this lead and follow it, because that is what you need to do. To what extent, I don't think they really got into. Move ensures titles remain functional even after servers are offline. Yeah, that's really all that was covered. So to what extent will it be playable offline still remains to be seen. Will it just be single player? Will it be split screen couch co-op kind of stuff? Will it be network, local network LAN play? We don't know yet, but when the games launch, we will know. So we'll keep tabs. From there, let's talk about Microsoft. Speaking of closing stores and firing people, Microsoft just announced that they're going to be slashing 650 more jobs from the gaming division. This time, though, this is a direct response to the Activision merger, or Activision acquisition, I guess I should say, because a lot of these jobs, the vast majority of these jobs, are going to be middle management and the upper-ups, not necessarily developers, not the people who are writing the code, but the people who are keeping those people in check, if you will, because a lot of it's going to be redundancy. This move was kind of anticipated when the acquisition was approved, because there's going to be a lot of people in middle management that are unnecessary when you have other people in middle management already working for Microsoft. So this one, I guess, is kind of, we'll let this one slide a little bit. We can't give them too much grief because that's just good business practice. Shuttering your in-house production studios and then saying that you need more production studios to do the things that those shuttered production studios were already doing, that's bad form. This is good business. From there, let's move into Tony Hawk. So Tony Hawk did an interview, a really unique interview, because this was from the Mythical Kitchen Last Meals on Earth interview series with Mythical Chef Josh. If you're a fan, I am a fan too, welcome. But yeah, Tony Hawk was it said in the interview that he is currently back in talks with Activision, talking about new gaming stuff, but that's all he could say. So what exactly he means, we don't know at this point. Is it going to be a reboot of the franchise, as has been rumored for some time? Or is it going to be the other rumor that's surrounding the Tony Hawk video game franchise, in which we're supposedly getting a Tony Hawk 3 and 4, much like we got the Tony Hawk 1 and 2 a few years ago? That all remains to be seen. We just know that Tony Hawk is doing a thing, so sweet. Let's move on. From there, we have the PlayStation 6 update. We have official confirmation that Sony is, in fact, in the early stages of development for the PlayStation 6. They are currently securing GPUs and, I believe, CPUs for the next generation console. The thing about this is the companies that they're going through, and I again, amazing note taker, but the companies that they're going through for these chips, it is pointing in a direction that is implying that we are going to be seeing some pretty solid backward compatibility come out of the next generation of Sony consoles. Some have even gone on to speculate that the backward compatibility will go so far as the PlayStation 3. So it won't just be the previous generation or even the previous 2 generations, because that's going to be easy. Because right now, PlayStation 4 games are basically playable on the PlayStation 5 ecosystem, but anything older than that is absolutely verboten. Most people still have a PlayStation 2 console, and those are still in mostly working condition. I don't know that there's been any sort of mass die-off for the PlayStation 2 consoles just yet, but I'm sure it'll happen eventually. Either way, that is one of the most popular, if I think at this point is now the second most popular console in the history of gaming. So let's just say there's a lot of spare parts. So if things start going bad, those are easy to fix. So there's less incentive, is the point I'm getting to. Less incentive to go that far back in their backward compatibility, but it does seem that they are going to be pointing more towards a backward compatible console, which is good for gamers. Let's keep this trend up, shall we, gaming industry? Let's do this. That is what we have this week, though, for gaming. The suggestion... Gaming and tech suggestions this week, I wanted to kind of flip the script on this one, because otherwise we'd just be talking about Mortal Kombat every freaking week. And I've brought it up, so I've kind of kept the trend going. But I'm gonna flip this one and put it on you guys. What do you suggest I play that's not Mortal Kombat this week? Let's have that conversation down in the comments section. Yeah, that's what we got for gaming and tech. Let's move on. All right, nerds, let's be honest. We all have a caffeine addiction. Well, maybe not all of us, but a large number of us have a bit of a caffeine addiction. We like to drink the energy drinks. It helps with the gaming, it helps with the focus for those of us with the ADHD, and it just kind of generally keeps us pepped up while we're, doing the things we need to do, i.e. work, etc., etc. So, with the price of energy drinks kind of going through the roof, I literally was at the gas station just the other day, and some of my favorite energy drinks, I haven't really purchased them for a while, but some of my favorite energy drinks were over $4 a can. And the reason I haven't purchased them for a while, A, is because they're getting more expensive, but B, because we have a channel partnership. It's not really a sponsorship, it's a partnership. So I get a little bit of a kickback if you buy stuff by following the link down in the description. But Dubby has been doing a lot as far as my pocketbook is concerned, but also as far as the quality of caffeine that I'm consuming while drinking my energy drinks. Because Dubby is an energy drink, but it's a little bit more than just caffeine. I say a little bit more, but let's go through some of these other ingredients besides the caffeine. Also of note about the caffeine, though, before we get into the other things, is that the caffeine is not synthesized caffeine. So it's a little bit slower to absorb, so it lasts a little bit longer, which also means you don't have as much of a crash. The caffeine comes from coffee fruit extract, so that is an actual source of caffeine. It's not synthesized caffeine, which is the better way to get caffeine. You don't want synthesized if you can avoid it. But we have L-taurine, L-tyrosine, L-glutamate, the L-citrulline. All of these things are nootropics. They help your brain with function. The caffeine helps, especially again if you have the ADHD. Stimulants help you with focus, but also these other vitamins in here are what's going to help you a little bit more with focus and things of that nature. Now, it is not meant to diagnose or treat any sort of situation. This is not medical advice because I am not a doctor. The guys who make the drinks are not doctors either. But these things have been shown to help with that kind of stuff. Do your own research. Talk to your personal physician if you have any questions along those lines, or, just generally speaking, if you have any health concerns, it's probably something that you should take upon yourself. But this is one of the better money options as well, because the average that this breaks down to is approximately $1.30 or so per drink that you mix with the powder. So compare that to $4 roughly for a can of the other stuff, and you see pretty quickly how much money you can save by drinking this versus that. I did just order my second tub, so we will be doing a little bit more of a dedicated video for that. But until then, if you follow the link down in the description, you use the code GenerallyNerdy at checkout, you will get 10% off of your entire purchase. They did also just roll out cans. Something to note though on the cans, they're not quite as cheap as the tubs because it's not the powder, they're pre-made obviously. But they are still a little bit cheaper than that $4 price tag. Approximately $3 a can if you buy the cans. And I'm pretty excited about the cans, I'm not gonna lie, I just haven't bought any yet, so I don't know what they taste like. Either way, Dubby partnered with the channel. Thank you very much, Dubby. Go check out Dubby for yourself. And until then, let's get back to the show, shall we, nerds? So comic books and books this week, we have the Rippaverse actually has two pieces about a new character. We're going to talk about their Batman anagram. Yeah, there's stuff there. Plus, speaking of Batman, Batman is getting his very own Walk of Fame star. Yes, the actual Batman. Plus, Grant Morrison is about to return to comics again, and it's noteworthy because it's Grant Morrison, so let's get into that. Trailers in comic books and books? Really? Yes, kind of. I know we had some last week, but it's not super common for us to get trailers in comic books and books, and that's usually because comic book companies don't do trailers for print media. But we got a trailer. This one, though, is different because technically this is for a TV show. It's a little different, though, because it's a Rippaverse TV show. So Rippaverse, for anyone who doesn't know, Rippaverse is an independent comic book label started by Young Rippa, who is also a YouTuber. I can't think of his real name right now, and it's definitely not in the notes, but either way, Rippaverse, they started this character. The name of the character is the Horseman. That's also going to be the name of the series. The trailer is actually a 6-minute proof of concept, I think is more of an appropriate title for what this is, the style of video this is. It's because it's not... They have it listed as a pilot episode, but it's 6 minutes, so that's not a whole episode of anything. And they also have it as a teaser, but it's 6 minutes, so that's a really long tease, I guess. So the more appropriate is proof of concept, because it is going to be an animated series. It is going to be behind the Rippaverse paywall, though. So I believe you're going to have to pay them like something like $5 or $8 a month in order to get this content. But this is a character that was created by Chuck Dixon. Like, legendary comic book writer Chuck Dixon created this character, and I have some issues, but we're going to get into that in the news piece about this, and not necessarily the trailer about this. Trailer looks interesting. Artwork is fine. It's harkening to Batman. Like, the character design is definitely a Batman ripoff. One of the issues that we're going to get into is his nascent killing, just kind of willy-nilly kills everybody. And if you're modeling your character after Batman, I feel like if he's a killer, you've missed the point. I'm a fan of the fact that the Rippaverse exists. I just haven't read any of those books. This is definitely something I can't just rifle through when I'm at the comic book shop, because none of the comic book shops in my area carry it. I don't know many comic book shops actually do carry raw floppies from this comic book label. So it's not really an option for me to just kind of rifle through and read an issue or two here and there. I would have to be in on the Kickstarters every time, and that's a lot to keep up with in a section of the entertainment world that is already difficult to keep up with. So I'm not super well versed, but I do know that Horseman was supposed to only exist as a one-off. It is now getting an animated series and a new series in the Rippaverse, which is going to be our first piece of the regular ass news. So let's transition from there into regular ass news. Rippaverse, Horseman, we have a proper series for the Horseman, written by Chuck Dixon, art by Joe Bennett, also a well-known comic book artist. The story follows Hector Caballero, which, come on, man, that is one of the laziest hero protagonist naming schemes I've ever heard. Caballero is Spanish for horseman, or for cowboy, maybe, which effectively is a horseman. Like, come on, it's just lazy. Like, the only thing I think that was lazier in all of my literary journeys was Snow Crash, Neil Stephenson. Fantastic book, but every time I read the protagonist's name on the page, it drives me a little bit insane, because the protagonist in Snow Crash is named Hero Protagonist. Come on, that's ridiculous. Whatever. So Horseman, Hector Caballero, former military operative turned vigilante who returns to his hometown to combat its criminal underworld. Series promises intense, mature storytelling focusing on street-level justice similar to Batman or The Punisher. It features collaborations from Rippaverse veterans and several variant covers for the first issue. So, yeah, I mean, very obviously, like I said, the character design is taken directly from Batman, but then the character execution is much more Punisher. That's those two characters I don't see as, there's not really, in the Venn diagram that is Batman and the Punisher, the overlap, I don't think it really exists. So yeah, it just was really kind of disconcerting to see that in the trailer. But interested, again, it's really awesome that the Rippaverse exists, even if I am unable to read the books. Let's move from there. The next thing that we got was the big one for the section. That is Batman getting his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame out in front of the Grauman Chinese Theater. Yes, Batman, in fact, the comic book character, Bruce Wayne Batman, is getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Near Adam West, and who else was right there? Adam West was the really notable one because he's also Batman. So yeah, pretty freaking cool. The ceremony, oh, Adam West and Bob Kane. Yeah, the other one's significant because Bob Kane's one of the creators. Bob Kane, Bill Finger, both created Batman. So yeah, I don't know when the ceremony is supposed to happen. Jim Lee will be there for the ceremony though, with signed Funko Pops for the audience. So that's pretty freaking cool. From there, we have a new X-Men update. X-Men is moving into a civil war. So Marvel is doing another civil war, this time with the X-Men. It's a big crossover event. A raid on Grey Malkin is going to be the proper name of the arc. It will unfold across several issues beginning in December of 2024. Written by Jed MacKay and Gail Simone. The story features those two different factions of the X-Men we talked about previously. The Cyclops faction, which apparently comes from Alaska, and then the Rogue faction, which comes from Louisiana. I'm not currently reading the arc, so I don't know the significance of that, but both groups launch a mission to raid Grey Malkin Prison, formerly Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, to rescue a captive Professor X. The prison, now run by a new villain, Dr. Karina Ellis, specializes in capturing and reprogramming mutants. So sure, it's going to be super safe, right? Nothing crazy is going to happen out of that. The event will explore deep ideological conflicts between Cyclops and Rogue's teams. So this is the storyline where they're really going to get into those philosophical differences that I find so incredibly interesting. Leading confrontations that question the legacy of Charles Xavier and the future of the X-Men. The storylines promise to have lasting repercussions in the mutant community and will with emotionally charged battles and complex character dynamics. The event will span 4 issues, X-Men number 8 and 9, and the Uncanny X-Men number 7 and 8. This is the story that I've been hoping for in order to fully flesh out these two arguments. I think it's going to be interesting. I know some of you disagree, and that is okay. But let's move on. Next, we have the return of Grant Morrison. So, famed comic book writer Grant Morrison is returning to writing comics, at least for something. It's going to be for Image Comics, we know that for sure. Don't know exactly what. There is reason to believe it will be a very specific thing, but we're going to get into that in the speculation section in the rumor mill. But it is still technically speculation. The only hard facts we know is Grant Morrison's returning for something to do with an Image comic. That's what we got. So, next we have a new Marvel comic that was announced. It's called The Hell Hunters. This is continuing with the Wolverine Hellverine book, I believe. But let's get into the synopsis, shall we? A new comic book miniseries that teams up Ghost Rider 44 and Wolverine in World War II setting. So, prequel to Hellverine, it seems. Features Sergeant Sal Romero, who transformed into Ghost Rider 44 after encountering a young Nazi officer, Felix Bruckner, possessed by a demonic force. The series penned by Philip Kennedy Johnson, drawn by Adam Gorman. Not super. I've seen the artwork, so the Adam Gorman stuff I'm vaguely familiar with, but I don't know who Philip Kennedy Johnson is. Not familiar with his work. Brings together a brutal team of soldiers, the Hell Hunters, quote unquote, tasked with fighting the Nazis and supernatural threats. The comic blends horror, action, and superhero elements with a gritty World War II narrative. That sounds freaking cool. Comic books, it's just hard to keep up, man. That's just kind of where we're at right now. But I am keeping track, so there's that. That is what we have for regular ass news, though, in comic book section. Let's talk now about your suggestion for the week in celebration / honor of Grant Morrison coming back to writing another story at the very least, because he's been on hiatus for a couple of years at this point. We have The Invisibles as your suggestion for the week. So Invisibles is Grant Morrison's magnum opus. This is the book if you want to understand why Grant Morrison is so revered in comic books today. You read The Invisibles, because that has been so influential throughout pop culture, not just through comic books, but pop culture in general. You're going to notice a lot of stuff that happened in The Matrix in this book too. That is a thing that happened. The Wachowskis didn't just steal from William Gibson, they also stole at least a little bit from Grant Morrison. So yeah, Invisibles is your mind-bending psychedelic recommendation for comic books and books this week. Go check it out.
Subscribe. That is all.
TV streaming this week, we have more Neil Gaiman Fallout, this time over on Netflix. The Penguin reviews are in, and it looks like it is going to be a fantastic Thursday, if I do say so myself. Plus, Netflix wants in on some of that YouTube pie. We're gonna talk about that in a little bit more, so let's jump into it. So, follow-ups and corrections for TV. We have another really not great thing to talk about, follow-ups and corrections for TV. Netflix has canceled Dead Boy Detectives. This normally would not be noteworthy, but it has been explicitly tied to the current goings-on with Neil Gaiman. The whole accusations against him and all of the legal issues that Gaiman is in, a lot of the properties that he is a part of, Sandman, Good Omens we talked about previously, are in some sort of limbo. And Netflix being Netflix just said, well, we already canceled the Deadwood, or what was it, Wormwood, I think was the name of that show. That was a very similar style story that was being told, it's also based on a young adult fiction novel. So we don't have to keep this one around either. Let's just axe it. Like that's kind of the way it's gone because of the situation that Neil Gaiman has put himself into. So, I mean, it is what it is. Hopefully Sandman isn't too affected by this, and also hopefully Good Omens gets to at least finish their final season. But aside from that, like, there's a movie that Disney was going to put out that's done filming that is now on hiatus as well because of the Neil Gaiman situation. I forget that it's something with a book. I can't remember what it was because they didn't put it in the notes because whatever, I take amazing notes. But this is just so widely affecting at this point. It's super duper unfortunate. So yeah, Dead Boy Detectives canceled at Netflix. Trailers this week. We got a couple of really fantastic trailers for TV shows. First up, we got the final Penguin trailer, and this is actually, I believe, a scene for it. A scene from the first episode. So far, the critics are liking. We've gotten the critic reviews for the one season of the Penguin, because I don't think they're going to do multiples, but for the Penguin season that's about to drop on Thursday on Max, and it's been getting good reviews. We'll see when the audience score drops, because that's not going to happen until it releases again on Thursday. So go check out the link in the description if you want to see the first, I think it's like 6 minutes of the first episode. Then we have a trailer for a series I think should have been on my radar and totally wasn't, and it is Dexter Original Sin. Actually, now that I say that out loud, I think we did talk about this when it was originally announced. We got the trailer for Original Sin. It is the prequel series to the Dexter show, the serial killer who helps the cops find other serial killers. That one? Yeah. So it is going to be starring... Where did my list go? Patrick Gibson, Christian Slater, Patrick Dempsey, Molly Brown, James Martinez, Christina Milian, Alex Shimizu, I don't know who that is, Reno Wilson, and special guest star Sarah Michelle Gellar. That's quite the cast right there. And then also, Michael C. Hall will be returning to reprise his role, technically speaking, because he's going to be the voice of the inner monologue for Patrick Gibson, who's going to play Dexter as a younger man. So, super interesting. If you're a fan of Dexter, it looks like this is going to be much in the same vein, hopefully better. We can only hope. That's what we got for trailers, though, this week. Let's jump into some regular-ass news. First up is a bit of a bummer. We got lots of not-so-great news this week, unfortunately. Peter Renaday. If you do not know who that is, you know his voice. Peter Renaday did the voice for Splinter in the original 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. He also was a voice in Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty and has done a number of other voices throughout his career. He passed on at the age of 89. And this is very potentially, the official cause of death was not released just yet as we are going to record today, but it is presumed that it is a heat-related death. He had reported to his granddaughter that he was having issues with his air conditioning unit. He did live in California, and it is summer, the end of summer, but still summer. So rolling brownouts, power issues, already having issues with his AC. Yeah, not a good combination for a man who is almost 90 years old. So that was a heavy one. Let's take a minute and remember Peter Renaday.
I, in turn, named them after my favorite Renaissance painters.
They wanted him to sound like a very learned man, and the sensei, the teacher.
It's news!
Wait! Come back with my hiding place!
And when I had to do Vernon, I wanted to get as far away from that as possible, so I got into a little bit of a higher register. Oh, April, come on, let me do something. Let me get some credit.
Is that really Solid Snake?
That's what he claims.
I thought Snake was dead.
Solid Snake did die. But he's also here in the shell. Either he survived or there are two of them.
Okay, let's bring things up just a little bit. Next on the list is the Emmys happened, and nobody really cared, except for the fact that the bear won 11 awards. So congratulations to everybody involved with the bear. Hopefully this means we will get to at least come to some sort of conclusion to Carmine's story. Hopefully another 4 or 5 seasons from now, because that show's just so damn good. But yeah, congratulations to everybody involved with the bear. Aside from that, I really don't care about the Emmys. So let's move on, shall we? From there, let's talk about, oh god, this is the big one, right? Netflix is trying to squeeze in on some of YouTube's streaming money. Streaming lunch, the chicken wings is where we're going with that. There was supposed to be a chicken wing joke in there. And yeah, so Hot Ones is apparently being sniped, or the Netflix is attempting to snipe Hot Ones to a certain degree from YouTube. As it stands right now, episodes of Hot Ones currently air on some basic cable channel. I can't remember. It's like TNT, TBS or something. They do episodes of Hot Ones on there with commercials and stuff. It's really weird. So this wouldn't be the first time that somebody else is trying to squeeze in. This one's a little bit more unique though, because Netflix doesn't want Hot Ones as it is right now, because the way Hot Ones works is it is pre-recorded and then they edit a bunch of the stuff out. Netflix is really leaning on this live streaming stuff. You have a show with David Chang. He has the lunch show where he cooks some celebrity friends and has a big conversation, very similar to the Bert Kreischer podcast, Something's Burning with Bert Kreischer. Very similar to that, but it's on Netflix and it's David Chang, so it's actually good food. But that's a live show. They did the live broadcast for Joe Rogan's last special. They've done a number of live things. So they're really rolling on this live stuff. So the angle with the Hot Ones would be a live version of Hot Ones. So there wouldn't be cuts, there wouldn't be any of that dramatic editing. It would just be them eating the wings and asking the questions. So you're taking a roughly 20 to 30 minute show and turning it into something more like probably an hour show, because I can only imagine how much they cut out of those episodes. But yeah, Netflix is really trying to get in on some of the YouTube is their biggest competition. Netflix dwarfs all of the other streamers aside from YouTube, because YouTube kind of has it right with their structure, their pay structure. They pay the people who create for their platform moderately well, but they also have a free platform. The only thing you have to do is sit through some ads. And it's working for them. They're in the positive these days. So yeah, I think that's more what Netflix should be working towards, and not necessarily sniping content from YouTube. That's just my opinion though. That's all we've got for regular ass news. Let's get into suggestion for this episode. Your suggestion this episode, again, we are in spooky season. It is the fall. We are talking about Michael Flanagan's Fall of the House of Usher. Sorry, it's first day with the new lips. Fall of the House of Usher is, I just finished watching it again. This is kind of like number 2.5, because we rewatch episodes so frequently. But yeah, just Edgar Allan Poe already is kind of fall material. You want to read the Edgar Allan Poe, the shorts and the poems and the stories and the things, because that's just the time of year that we're in. So it makes a lot of sense, and you just really get into the fall spirit, right? Well, Michael Flanagan made it a little bit easier. You can watch the stories of Edgar Allan Poe play out in gory fashion, and in some of the best television this side of the bear. That's not 100% accurate, but since we made the comment. Yeah, there is a little bit of a warning with this suggestion, because there is some very hard to watch scenes when it comes to animal issues. So some of the earlier episodes, definitely, if you're squeamish when it comes to that stuff, look at what's the name of that website? DoesTheDogLive.com, I think is. Look up which episodes I'm specifically talking about, because I can't tell you. I do know that The Telltale Heart, though, my favorite episode of this series, is not one that really gets into the animal stuff too much, but there is still a little bit there. Just really really great. It works as a social commentary to a certain degree, though a little heavy-handed at times. It definitely works as a fantastic adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's work and sets itself apart because it is Michael Flanagan being Michael Flanagan. So yeah, that's your suggestion for the week. Follow The House of Usher on Netflix. This week's movies section, the Venom 3 trailer that came out since we posted the last one, definitely has proved me wrong about the rumors surrounding this movie. We'll talk about it. Plus, the Salem's Lot trailer, speaking of awesome trailers. The Salem's Lot trailer dropped. We're going to talk about that. We have a new movie that is being made after The Sims. Is the video game movie adaptation thing getting a little out of control at this point? Let's get into all this. Movies, no follow-ups, no corrections. We are jumping into trailers. So this week's trailers, we're starting things off. Salem's Lot dropped its trailer, and I've never watched the first one, never read the book. I'm not a big Stephen King fan necessarily, but wow. This trailer might change my mind, not gonna lie. This is, if this movie is as effective as this trailer, I might become slightly a bit of a Stephen King fan, at least for this story. It's super effective. Absolutely huge. Going from that, let's get into the Venom 3 stuff, shall we? Links, as always, in the descriptions if you want to see the trailers we're talking about. But Venom 3, we got the Venom 3 trailer, and they showed us Null in the trailer. So this totally confirms the rumors that Null was going to be the villain for Venom 3. Because, I mean, if you're teasing Null in the trailer, how are you going to do any other villain? Because there's been a lot of speculation online that Null is only going to have a cameo role. He's only going to step in as the post-credit scene, X, Y, and Z. People are just totally huffing that copium really hard. Null is one of the most epic Marvel villains to be retconned into Marvel continuity in recent years. Like, Null is pretty amazing, so I don't know how they're going to do it, but apparently they're going to do it somehow. This has led to many more rumors associated with Spider-Man, so we'll get into those in the Spider-Man section, in the rumor mill section. But just know that I was wrong, and they are in fact doing. I really did not see this one coming. There was little indication. This is the last Tom Hardy movie as Venom. Well, this is the last Tom Hardy starring movie as Venom. We don't know what the details of his contract are. He very well could be continuing to play Venom in other movies where he's not the star, so he only has to be on set for so many days. He's not going to be there every day. So, yeah, I was wrong. All right, let's move on. From there, those are the only trailers we got. Let's talk about some regular-ass news. We got Francis Ford Coppola. Wow, drama here. I don't know why I didn't put this in the tease for the section at least, but Francis Ford Coppola is suing Variety. The trade Variety. It used to, I would say the trade, the news trade, but they don't, I mean, it's not printed anymore. It's only online, as far as I know, anyway. So Francis Ford Coppola is suing for $15 million for defamation because Variety wrote an article in July of this year that accused him of unprofessional behavior on the set of Megalopolis, the movie that I'm kind of excited is coming out. The article alleges that Coppola made inappropriate advances toward young female extras and ran a chaotic production. Coppola very much refutes these claims, labeling them as false and damaging to his reputation. Yes, in modern era, absolutely damaging to his reputation. His lawsuit asserts that Variety relied on anonymous sources and exaggerated incidents, portraying him as incompetent. Despite these accusations, Variety stands by its reporting, while Coppola emphasizes his lifelong respect for women, vowing to clear his name in court. This is intense. Francis Ford, there's another liable lawsuit that's in pop culture right now that doesn't really fall into any of our categories. It's Tim Pool suing Kamala Harris for something kind of similar. That one's different in that it's political, but also, like, the things that he said are currently readily available on his page on Rumble. not on YouTube, for different reasons, not related to the things that he said, but related to what his guest said. But the episode is still up on Rumble, so people can go verify what he actually said on their own. But the Francis Ford Coppola thing, like, that one happened effectively behind closed doors, so there's no way to verify what actually happened outside of a court of law. So I think this is a really interesting, like, is this going to have greater effect? Like, that's the big question here. Is this going to reach out its tendrils into other things that Variety covers, other sources Variety goes to? Like, what is going to be the larger effect if Francis Ford Coppola wins this lawsuit? Because that's potentially very damning for Variety even. So as this one develops, we'll be keeping tabs. Let's move on, though. Let's move now into one that kind of confuses me, and that's The Sims. Yes, The Sims is getting a movie, apparently. The producer on this is Kate Herron. It is going to be an Amazon MGM property, so presumably MGM will be distributing it to theaters. So Kate Herron was the director and executive producer for season 1 of Loki. She will also be directing, co-writing, and executive producing this movie. I saw one source say something about Margot Robbie's involvement, though I was unable to corroborate that information. There, according to Kate Herron in an interview where she's talking about the Sims movie. Again, I gotta say that out loud because I still don't believe it's happening. How are you turning The Sims into a movie? According to Herron, though, there are going to be lots of Easter eggs from the game, from the last 20 or so years of this game's existence. They're going to find ways to put Easter eggs. The ones that were name dropped specifically were pets in fridges, apparently. Also, swimming pools without ladders to climb out with. So I don't get it. What is going on? If we get more to clarify this, we'll be keeping tabs, but that's really all we got right now. So our last one is kind of a mixed piece as well. I don't know how to feel about this one. Baz Luhrmann is doing a Joan of Arc movie. The life of Joan of Arc is going to be told through the lens of Baz Luhrmann. Now, normally, a couple of years ago, I would have been super excited about this because I really dug everything Baz Luhrmann did. Like, I don't know that I had seen anything that was done by him that I didn't really, really love. And then the Elvis movie came out, and I went, what was that? Because that Elvis movie was mixed at best. And so now I'm a little bit more trepidatious when Baz Luhrmann announces a project, though an interesting one for him to tackle because not a whole lot of stuff there that you can make look overly shiny. Yeah, go watch Moulin Rouge and Elvis to see what I mean by that. But yeah, interesting. We'll be keeping an eye out for maybe a trailer might clarify this one for me. Once we get a trailer for the Baz Luhrmann Joan of Arc movie, we will know a little bit more about how to feel about this one. But that's what we got for regular ass news this week, which puts us into suggestions. This is an interesting suggestion. Again, spooky season, so it is technically a horror movie. Comes from Jordan Peele. It's called Nope. So this is a unique movie. Previously, stuff that Jordan Peele had done felt like it could have been like an extended episode of The Twilight Zone, only he doesn't fully understand how the Twilight Zone works, so that's probably not the best comparison to make, but that's kind of the territory that he was in. And then he decided to make Nope, and really took a couple of tropes and flipped them on their head and still was able to make a really interesting social commentary and just take it's sci-fi horror, and the sci-fi elements are not readily available immediately in the movie, but once you get about halfway through, you figure it out. So yeah, it takes the idea of sci-fi horror and really subverts your expectations for it. It takes your idea of a Western horror, because that's effectively a Western as well, and subverts your expectations for that too. So really effective on those fronts, and also just very entertaining. A movie that will find its way into regular rotation, I'm sure, in my house. So that's your suggestion for the week, is Nope from Jordan Peele.
Maybe. It's classified.
This week in the rumor mill, to round out the episode, we have a big sequel rumor to squash because apparently it is absolutely not happening. I say that very specifically. Plus, we have a couple of X-Men rumors to discuss, as well as new Nintendo leaks for the Switch 2 show a very probable break in protocol for the gaming giant. And then we've got quite an interesting rumor mill on top of all of that as well. Confirmations. Refutations is where we start the section proper for the rumor mill. First up is a confirmation. We already kind of talked about this in the movie section. Confirmation for those null rumors in Spider-Man. Yeah, Donny Cates, this is just further confirmation that this is more than just a cameo. But Donny Cates, who is the creator of the character of Null, took to X to say effectively that Null was going to be the villain for the movie. He says Venom is fighting the character that he created, and apparently his 40th birthday was just a few days ago. So happy late birthday, I guess, Donny. But super interested to see what the hell is going on with this. He also, in a later tweet, said that he saw the script, he read the script, and it is wild. So if the creator of the character is signing off on the script, which that sounds like that's what he did, then I'm very intrigued to see what the hell's going on here. That's our first one. Our second refutation is not a confirmation, it is a refutation, is the Goonies. This is the one that we did the tease for. The big sequel that we're refuting is Goonies 2. Goonies 2 is not happening. At least, according to, Corey Feldman, Martha Plimpton, that was the one I couldn't remember. Corey Feldman and Martha Plimpton both have come out and said that they have no knowledge of a Goonies 2 happening. And when we previously talked about this, when we were talking about the fact that the rights had been purchased by somebody to do it, it was made known that WB wanted to do the right thing by the franchise. So, and I think even that was an official statement from a representative at, was it WB? Let's consult the notes, shall we? Yes, WB. WB wanted to get it right. So, if they wanted to get it right, then you would assume that Martha Plimpton and Corey Feldman would be involved because they were involved with the first movie. Sean Astin has said certain things in the news a while ago that implied that maybe this was going forward to some degree, but it is not. The previous rumor that we discussed with this was that production was about to actively go underway and they were going to be into principal photography before the end of this year. That part is what we're refuting. That is not happening. The potential for a Goonies 2 movie to happen definitely still exists. Again, Warner Brothers has said that it is on the list of things that they want to do. With this current state of Warner Discovery, maybe that might not happen, but it is still potentially there. So will it never happen? That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is it's not happening now. So that's all we got. Let's get into news sources for old rumors. We only have one piece in here. News source for the Resident Evil gaming rumors. We now have a news source that confirms. So this is kind of one of the worst kept secrets in gaming at this point, because gaming rumors, the only sources I have are usually pretty good. And now that we have two sources for it, there's kind of no denying. We have Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0 are both in different stages of development, but both in active development at this point. So it sounds like Code Veronica will be the first one out of the gate, and then Resident Evil 0 will be after Code Veronica. No release dates, obviously, for any of this because it is technically still rumor. So yeah, that's what we got. Let's move into the new rumors, shall we? This is where we get really interesting with the rumor mill. Starting things off, speaking of Null, because we are going to be speaking of Null for some time, I'm sure, we have the Symbiote God is said to be either the next big bad or one of the big bads going forward in the MCU proper, so 616 universe, with a guest spot in Secret Wars 2. I feel like I'm being rather generous with this likelihood because there is really nothing at all that you can do to confirm this. But because I'm really just kid gloving the Null stuff. I'm going to say about 50% likely that we will see him. I don't know that he's going to be the next big bad, but will he be big bad for maybe some sort of minor arc in a futures phase of the MCU? Yeah, that seems like a good idea. If it's not likely, it's still a good idea. So, but is there any corroborating evidence for this? Not really. We're going to say 50% likely for that part. But also, there is a second rumor here dealing with Null specifically, and that is who is playing Null. So Norman Reedus, we know, is not playing Null. I guess that's technically a refutation because that's big rumor since this trailer dropped. No, Norman Reedus is not playing Null. The actual rumor here is that Rhys Ifans, who previously played the Lizard in the Spider-Man universe, is going to be playing Null for this movie. Obviously, he's not returning as the Lizard. The reason I say it's obvious is because if you go check out that trailer, Rhys Ifans is in the trailer, and he's a hippie or something. So, like, that also, I think, squashes this rumor too, though. He's going to be a different role entirely. He's not going to be a villain, it would seem. There is still a modicum of possibility that he is going to be something more than just that hippie character, but it sounds like maybe that hippie character is just going to be some sort of mentor, some sort of wise advice giver person to Venom, and that's going to be about it because we hear a little voiceover from him in the trailer. So I say 15% likely that we're going to see Rhys Ifans play Null. Who is going to play Null, I think we will not know until approximately a week before the movie releases. Or whenever it is that IMDb does their proper update, or Wikipedia, whoever does the proper update that gives us the definitive casting list, that's when we'll know. I don't think that knowledge is going to be had before that time. Moving on, staying in the Spider-Man universe side of things, though, we're going to be talking about... Okay, so Null again, kind of. Spider-Man 4, rumor is the villain is going to be Null for Spider-Man 4, which will then bump those plans we talked about previously, also rumored, plans for a quote-unquote street-level movie where you get your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. That's going to bump that back to Spider-Man 5, presumably, and this is going to be not multiversal, but just an Avengers-level event. So, yeah. This one seems also slightly less likely, but I mean, since Null's there and he's a big part, like maybe the Sony contract is changing with Marvel. Maybe that because integration is not something they've done super well in the past, but now that they're losing Venom and then they're also not doing so hot with the other Spider-Man-less movies, like maybe they've renegotiated and so they're integrating a little bit better. Either way, I can't necessarily... There's not enough to go on either side. We're going to split the difference and say 50% likely for that one as well. But there's there's actually two more Spider-Man rumors, specifically the director, because that's been a big thing at this point. Destin Daniel Cretton, who previously directed Shang-Chi, is now said to be in negotiations to be directing Spider-Man 4. So according to some very strong sources, this one is kind of almost all but a lock. So we're looking at 70% likely that we'll be seeing Destin Daniel Cretton behind the camera for this movie, which would be interesting. I would definitely be intrigued to see what he could bring to the franchise. And then we have another source saying that it is Spider-Man 4 specifically is not going to deal with the multiverse, but is still somehow going to be an Avengers level event. So specifically dealing with the non-multiversal Avengers level event in a Spider-Man movie. I don't know, there's just a lot of that doesn't ring true. There have been a number of sources talking about something like this or some variation of this rumor. So I can't say it's completely unfounded, but I can say that it just feels wrong. So this one, we're going to go pretty negative. We're going to say 25% likely that we will be seeing a non-multiversal Avengers level event in Spider-Man 4. I think it's going to be big, but maybe not that big. From there, let's talk about Scarlet Witch. Staying with the MCU, Scarlet Witch is reportedly going to be coming back to the MCU because apparently Elizabeth Olsen wasn't at some point. I don't know that that was ever a thing, but yeah, so 90% likely that we're going to see a Scarlet Witch movie just in general. There's another rumor dealing similarly with this we'll get to in just a second, but the fact that a Scarlet Witch movie is going to happen starring Elizabeth Olsen, sure. I mean, like, I feel like that shouldn't even be rumor at this point. Like, she signed on to be the character, and we haven't heard otherwise at this point, so no reason to think otherwise. Next up, let's talk about the X-Men. So we have a couple of rumors here, the first of which being that there are, in fact, 2 different X-Men projects currently underway to some degree at the MCU. This one's just, I don't know, vagary kind of helps usually, but I don't think that in this instance it helps enough to say that this is even halfway there. So this is 40% is where we're going. 40% likely that there are 2 X-Men projects in development. Is there early stages of development on one X-Men project? That seems pretty likely. We are still a number of years away from seeing an X-Men movie. Will we see X-Men in other movies? Probably. I mean, we kind of already have. We have Wolverine in Deadpool, right? So will we see other X-Men besides Wolverine in other projects? Probably. Will we see a proper X-Men project before, what is it, Avengers, what is the second one? Doomsday, right? No, Secret Wars is the second one. Duh. So will we see proper X-Men project before Secret Wars? No. Will a proper X-Men project be going into early production before Secret Wars? Yes. 2 X-Men? No, absolutely not. So again, I kind of graded this one up just a little bit. So we're going to say 40%. From there, we have another X-Men rumor, this one dealing with Kelsey Grammer supposedly returning to play Beast moving forward. So this one, I feel like there's a line of distinction that needs to be drawn because will Kelsey Grammer probably be reprising his role as Beast at least one more time? I would say, yeah, that's pretty safe bet because we have Secret Wars coming up and we have the destruction of the multiverse very likely coming up. So will we see a whole bunch of fan servicey cameos? Yeah, I would say that's a safe bet. They're just going to be cameos, though. This rumor specifically says that Kelsey Grammer is going to be playing Beast into the future to a certain degree, much like we're going to be seeing Hugh Jackman playing Logan for a given time in the future at this point. So I think that part is really what kills this because I just can't see them pushing, I really can't see them pushing a new X-Men team with somebody the age of Kelsey Grammer also being part of the new team. Like that, it's all of that just points to them casting a group of younger actors who can sign on for the next 15 to 20 years. So yeah, no, we're gonna say 30% just because we will see him in the future. I think it's only gonna be a cameo once. There is a possibility it will be maybe 2 to 3 cameos, but anything beyond that, I really think is grasping at straws. So 30% likely for Kelsey Grammer. Let's move into gaming real quick. Gaming, Nintendo Switch 2. Technically, this is a leak, but again, leaks belong in rumors because leaks can change and leaks can be wrong. Because people can say it's a leak and make up the entire bit. Anyway, so Nintendo Switch 2, now that they have gone into manufacturing, as according to the leak at least, which would make sense because everyone is anticipating them launching the console. Was it like Q1 or Q2 of 2026? So if they want to attack the console launch properly, then it would make sense that they're going into production this early or sometime soon at the very least. So them saying that they're in production isn't necessarily the scary part or the crazy part. The crazy part though is kind of twofold. One is that they're going to be calling the Nintendo Switch to the Nintendo Switch 2. This will be the first time, well, I take that back. Super Nintendo and the original Nintendo Entertainment System, NES and SNES. That is the only other time that two consoles have shared. Oh no, I take that back. I take that back again, because Wii and Wii U. Where was my brain when I was writing these notes? So this is not necessarily unusual. So the fact that I gave it such a high mark on the probability doesn't seem as unlikely as when I originally wrote this number. But yeah, so then calling it the Nintendo Switch 2, this will be the first time though that it's been given a number quantifier, whereas like I said previously, the Nintendo, the NES, then the SNES, so Nintendo Entertainment System and Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and then the Wii and the Wii U, again, not a number differentiator, just an extra letter effectively. So we're going to say 90% likely on this one. The other part of this one though is that it's going to be basically the same form factor. It's just going to be more advanced hardware under the hood, which requires a little bit of a redesign, but by and large it is going to be the same basic form factor, according to this leak. Again, 90% likely on this one, just because all of that seems, there's little reason to believe otherwise, especially when it comes to gaming rumors. So our final rumor, before we get to speculation on other things discussed in today's episode, our final rumor is MCU release dates. So this leaker actually went into much greater detail with other movies as well. But I feel like the two that are worth discussing, because everything else was way too far out to be discussed honestly. The two that I feel like were worth discussing were Doctor Strange 3 and Scarlet Witch. Like I said, we're revisiting the Scarlet Witch rumors. Doctor Strange 3 is, according to the rumor, expected to be February 13th of 2026, and then Scarlet Witch movie is expected to be November 6th of 2026. Now, normally that kind of specificity would be a little bit weird, because where the hell did you pull those dates out of? Well, we know where those dates come from, because Marvel has announced that they have a number of untitled and unannounced projects that will be launching on those dates. And then, like I said, the leaker, or the rumor monger, whatever you want to call them, went even further into the future with other dates that Marvel has announced. We're going to be releasing something on these dates, and the rumor monger said they're going to be releasing these on these dates, and these are the two that were the most likely. So, and by most likely I mean like 50%. That's what we're looking at. 50% likely that these are the movies that are going to be released on these dates. So yeah, that's what we're looking at as it stands as far as regular rumors. Let's talk some speculation ever so briefly, because we do have at least the one piece dealing with Grant Morrison from the comic book section. So speculation is that Grant Morrison is going to be contributing to the anthology book for the Ice Cream Man that is an Image Comics property. Seems likely because the announcement was made in a font that resembles the Ice Cream Man font, and also with ice cream in the background on the image. So seems pretty, still technically speculation. They could be trying to pull a fast one on us, but just doesn't seem super likely. So yeah, that's our little bit of speculation for the episode, and that is what we got for the rumor mill, nerds.
Why do I get the impression you forgot to push the subscribe button? I mean, it's free, so go ahead and do that, and, yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks. We'll get back to the show now. Okay, bye.
That brings us into housekeeping for the episode. This week's housekeeping is actually a legitimate piece of housekeeping, because next week's episode is going to be affected by things. We're going to see, what is next week? Lord of the Lost. Lord of the Lost is next week. This week we're seeing Everclear, and I'm super stoked about that. And then I'm even also super stoked about Lord of the Lost next week. But that's going to affect our abilities to do the episode. So what I plan on doing next week, we will very likely just do a rumor mill, and then as far as the other sections are concerned, we'll probably do new music to attack things. Very possibly we'll be doing a live episode next week. Stay tuned to the social medias just in case, because I'm kind of playing it by ear for the next couple of days. But at the very least, we'll do a rumor section with a new music section, and then Nerdy Recommends, or the suggestions effectively for everything. But a Nerdy Recommends episode, usually there's more than just one suggestion per section. And then the following week, I think we should be back to a regular schedule. So next week's gonna be a little crazy. We'll return to normal after that. Other housekeeping, I think that's it. Thank you very much, nerds, for joining me. If you are falling behind in your nerd news, you want to catch up, there are boxes that are showing up to, I think it's this side of my face if you're on YouTube. If you are on any of the other platforms, then check out the YouTube or the Rumble. I do post the long form episodes on Rumble as well. So if you have an aversion to YouTube, then go over to Rumble. If you're listening on audio, thank you very much for listening on audio, and I appreciate you there. Just be sure to drive safely while you're listening in the car. And appreciate your faces, nerds. We'll see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.